Hey, welcome back. So, with Persona 3 Reload coming out, I'm excited to make videos on guides, builds, boss fights, the whole works. The only issue is, I also have to play through the game first before I can make content, so I know what's actually good and what to recommend. Therefore, those type of videos will need some time to actually come out. But, one video idea I had that doesn't require me to do any actual gameplay is a review of all the DLC personas the game comes with. If you played any of the recent Atlus titles, you know DLC personas are par for the course. In these games, the DLC personas tend to be pretty good, maybe even a little too good. Even the ones that are low level, such as Orpheus and Kaguya in P5, tend to be really overtuned compared to the base game ones. P3 Reload comes with 21 DLC personas comprising the regular and awakened versions of the P5 cast, as well as 3 from P4. It's pretty skewed in favor of P5, but I guess Atlus suspects that a lot more people are familiar with the P5 ones. I thought I'd quickly go over each one and try to determine how good they are. Now, at the time of recording, I obviously haven't been able to use each persona, so there could be some things I'm missing, or there happens to be some crazy setup later on that makes one of the personas I talk about here better than what I assume. This is just a first-hand look. And last thing, this isn't really a is the DLC worth it video, that's more a subjective choice. The DLC for this game is completely cosmetic, it's just some DLC personas, outfits, and background music. P3 Reload isn't ever going to be hard enough that you need DLC to progress. You only get them if you like the designs or the characters they're associated with. There's no additional story content, so all of it is optional. With that said, like and subscribe if you want to see more videos, and on to the actual review. So starting off, we have Arsene, Joker's initial persona. Oh, and also for this vid, I thought I'd make a tier list because who doesn't love a tier list for this type of thing? But as you'll see later on, it is pretty straightforward. Now when it comes to evaluating a persona, there's basically only two key things to look at, because generally in these games, any persona can reach level 99 and get max stats. Some take more time than others, but that's kind of how it goes. So the only thing that makes a persona distinct is 1, having a unique move that no one else can learn, or 2, just having very good resistances so they're good defensively. So those will be the criteria I'd use to rank the different personas. When it comes to Arsene, he doesn't seem to have an exclusive move. He starts with Aegea, which does weak dark damage to one foe. In Reload, dark and light attacks are standard damage moves. There are still insta-kills in the game, but they aren't the norm. Arsene does learn a skill named Dark Driver, which boosts all dark type damage by 75%. Generally, you won't learn this type of skill until much later, so Arsene will do more damage than the base game personas around his own level. As you'll see, basically every other initial persona of the P5 cast follows this archetype. Zorro has wind skills and a move that boosts them by 75%. Same thing for Captain Kidd, Carmen, Goemon, Johanna, Milady, Robin Hood, and Cendrillon. So all these personas will of course be very good at their starting level, but there doesn't seem to be anything unique to make them stand out. So all will just go into the solid tier. One interesting thing is because there are no nuke skills in the game, Johanna's nuke stuff is now almighty. Same thing with Milady, there being no psi attacks means her whole focus is on gun skills, which in this game are Pierce. Moving on to the P4 personas, these 3 all seem to have exclusive moves. Starting with Izanagi, he gets Cross Slash, which does medium slash damage 2 times to one foe. While Izanagi does get an exclusive move, there's actually another DLC persona, Vanadis, that basically gets this exact move, but it is AoE instead of single target, and it has a high chance of landing critical hits. So it's basically Cross Slash, but better. Even though Izanagi gets some solid buffing moves as well via level up, given the fact he gets straight up power crept, I can't rank him above solid. Next we have another Izanagi who has a move named Magatsu-Mandala, which does heavy dark damage to all foes with a medium chance of fear or confuse. This being a damaging move that also applies ailments is pretty nice. Along with the fact he learns Ghastly Wail, which is a guaranteed insta-kill on any foe inflicted with fear, it makes for a good combo. Insta-kills and ailments generally won't work on bosses, but it's great for a large portion of the game. Magatsu-Izanagi definitely goes into the strong tier, could maybe be higher given the situation, but I'll leave him here for now. Lastly, for the P4 personas is Kaguya. She learns her signature move Shining Arrows that does weak light damage 4 to 8 times to all foes. We know by now that weak attacks that hit multiple times in Persona games can tend to be very strong. I mean, just look at Hasatobi. So depending how much damage this ability does on average, this is definitely a contender for one of the best DLC Personas. She also gets a skill that boosts multi-target damage by 15% straight up. This isn't an exclusive skill, but it's still nice to learn via level up. I'd put Kaguya in the very strong tier. The question marks are just here because we don't actually know how much damage her move does quite yet. Next up are the awakened versions of the P5 cast. Again, they're pretty similar to each other with a few exceptions. Most get a severe magic attack that hits all enemies, matching their element type. Now, severe tier skills did exist before in Persona 3, an example being Thunder Rain, but they were limited to being single target. These moves just hit everyone. The only thing the original severe skills might have over these new ones is that some of them inflicted an ailment with 100% accuracy, which may or may not still be the case. Regardless, if these are exclusive skills, all these personas definitely belong in the strong tier at least. For the last couple of P5 cast personas that don't follow the same archetype, we have Haru's awakened persona Astarte, who has the move one-shot kill. This does severe pierce damage to one foe with a high chance of critical, meaning it'll likely land most of the time, so this definitely makes her rank up there with the rest. Following, we have Vanadis, who I mentioned earlier. She gets the move Masquerade. This move is essentially cross-slash, but AoE with a high chance of landing critical hits. There are a lot of enemies in Tartarus that for whatever reason have no weakness, and the only way to knock them down is via a critical. So with this move having a high chance, and it hitting all enemies, I'd honestly have to rank Vanadis in potentially very strong tier, just for this fact. Second to last, we have Loki, who learns the move Rebellion Blade. This move deals massive almighty damage to one foe, and does even more damage if the enemy is knocked down. Originally, I was thinking of just putting Loki in strong tier, because the move has a condition of the enemy being knocked down, and most bosses aren't susceptible to knockdowns. But from my very limited testing, this move kinda just does an insane amount of damage. Even if enemies aren't susceptible to knockdowns, I think it may be a contender for the hardest hitting move in the game. That alone is enough for Loki to move up a rank, I think. It is also great that we're able to use both Masquerade and Rebellion Blade in more than just one battle. And last but not least is Saten, Joker's ultimate persona. Saten gets the move Sinful Shell that does massive almighty damage to all foes with a medium chance of dark-based insta-kill. This seems to be the myriad truths of this game, so if you wanted a win now button, well, here it is. We'd actually have to test it versus something like Megidolon. Maybe it only does like 5% more damage and it's not that crazy, but it very likely does a lot more than that. So tentatively, I'd put Saten as the only persona in the broken tier, with question marks because there isn't concrete data on how much damage the move actually does relative to everything else. And that is basically the review and the list. Not too shocking, I mean you'd expect that Saten as a DLC persona would be fairly strong, but there are a lot of other great additions. I just wanted to take a look at all the DLC personas, and I figured that some other people may find it interesting, and this is a good way to buy time over until I'm actually able to play through the game more. So again, like and sub if you want to see more stuff from me, and enjoy Persona 3 Reload. Peace.